This is a solution video for tutorial 7 SAM project. So we open up the database and the first instruction is going into the grading info table, putting in your name. I won't bother doing that. But then we're down to open the report, employees and managers, and they want that in the layout view. And they want us to change the report title to employees and managers with spaces. So I'll double click on the report title. So instruction 2 then says take that monthly salary and let's change the format to currency. Well, the format's going to be in the property sheet. So if I run to the property sheet after having selected monthly salary, it comes up here, monthly salary. Of course, if it doesn't, you can choose it off that list. But the format general number, we're now going to change to currency. And instruction 3 wants us to now take that monthly salary and we're going to add a subtotal to that. So down here on group in this more area is where we can start adding totals or subtotals and grand totals. Of course, if this isn't showing, it's this group and sort button while we're in layout view that brings that up. So I'll click on more. We've got monthly salary. I want to go monthly salary and we're going to sum it. And right here, it doesn't mention this in the instruction, but if you look at the picture, the sum monthly salary is in the footer of that subtotal group. So now if I scroll down, there's our subtotal in that footer. But I need to do it again because we also want to get the grand total. So when I clicked on that box, for some reason it all went away. So here we go. So again, we want monthly salary, sum, and I also want a grand total. So what that will do is put the grand total at the very bottom of the report, and then we have the subtotal in the footer of each section. Instruction 4 wants us to change these labels so that this says first name, and then we're going to run over to this label and change this to last name. And now we want to resize the column headings in all of their text boxes. I'm not sure in layout view if there's a quicker way to do this, but one way is just to select each one. So for instance, this we can see that we need more room on the title, employee last name, first name, everything looks okay. So I think we've done the resizing. Oops, employee ID could probably be a little bit bigger. Okay. So moving on to instruction 5, they want us to go to design view. So I'll open that up. We'll scroll down. I think I'm going to get rid of this group and sort button right here so we have more room. We want to have a count of the employee ID, I believe it is, in the bottom of the report footer section. So I'm going to grab this text box right here and draw, whoops, I forgot to draw it there. Draw that in. There's our control, and we're going to do a count on this. So for the data of that box, we go to control source and we will open up our builder. If you run to functions, built-in functions, and scroll down, you'll see when you get to the C's, there's a count. So if you double click on that, you'll get count, and then it goes, oh, what do you want to count? If we run to our report over here on the elements, and you'll see employee ID, not the label. But right here, if we double click, there's our count of employee ID. We hit OK, and it will put in the equal sign for us. So that's the count of the employee ID. So 5B wants us to move this control to, I think, the 2-inch mark. It wants a couple grid lines above it. I think it was 2. So I just hit the down arrow on my keyboard for that. Actually, it says it's in the grid, so maybe I'll go up 1 for that. So I'll click there, go up there, something like that. Now we want to left align the label control with the manager ID control. So if I scroll up in the report, there's the manager ID. One of the things I think I have finally figured out, because it's driving me nuts, when you select 2 controls and you go to your alignment button, to which control is it going to move to the left? Is it going to be this one or that one? It used to be on some programs it would be the last one you selected was the one that was going to be the stationary one and everybody else move to it. What I'm figuring out is if I were to just take this control and move it, as long as I'm aligning left, the one that's on the leftmost side will be stationary and the other one will go towards it. So now when I say align left, that moved this guy right to there. If I had left this text control over here to this edge, when I align left, well then the manager guy would move over, and I didn't want that. So drag this control so it's further to the right. When you align left, it will come up in line with that manager ID. Finally, 5D, we want to change the border control on this guy to transparent. So I'm going to format on that text box, border style, transparent is at the top. And then the caption property of that text box should be number of employees. So again, in the property sheet, I type number of employees. And then of course I'm going to need to resize that by double clicking on it. So now we'll move on to instruction 6, which has this. I'm going to close the property sheet. It has us take a look at this box, and we want to move it down. We're going to do some aligning with that and then put a line above it. So I'm going to give myself a little space here. I will select that and move it down. I think it wants one grid line above there. And then of course we're going to go to, we want to add a line above it. So I go to design, you hit the line control. If you hit the shift key before you click on anything, it will do a straight line no matter how crooked you are with your mouse. And so there's that line. And now basically they want you to do the same thing for the grand total in the report footer. So I'll just hit the down arrow a couple times. I can quickly grab that line, hold down the shift key, click, and oops, I didn't drag. Control Z to redo that or undo it. So now right there, hold down the shift key, click and drag across. And then they mention about aligning to the right side to make sure their links are approximate, or so to make sure we want to align the right side of the control with the line. So it's kind of hard to select both of them, but again, under the range, you're going to have your align to the right, and then make sure the links are approximately the same, and that's close enough. I'm not going to mess with that. And now instruction 7 is a little weird. It says remove the alternate back color for all sections of the report. I guess what just bothers me about that is it's alternate row color. I don't know why they're all of a sudden getting that back color. So anyway, for all sections, so I click the header section and I will choose no color. I can go to the detail section and choose no color. I don't think footer or report footer has a color associated with it, so it's just the location header and the detail. Maybe that footer also we could go with no color. So what that does is when you open up the report, there's no shading whatsoever on it. Is basically what they're after there. So both in the header section and the detail section. Our footer really didn't have anything in it other than that sum anyway for the monthly total. And finally on instruction 8, I'm going to go back to design view, and they want us to align that with something, with the monthly salary text box. They probably want the right edge is what I would assume. So following the rule that I discovered, because this is to the left of that guy, if I align right edges, that will move over to that side. So we'll go to arrange, align, and we'll do the right edges, and that moved over. We're good to go, and we're done with that report. And now in instruction 9, we're creating that mailing label. Under the report section in the create ribbon is something for labels. Before I start it, make sure you click on table patient so it uses that as a record source. So I click on that label. We want the 2160 Avery label. We'll hit next, and then it lists the things that it wants for all the fonts. It to be Calibri 11, normal font weight, and text color black. You may need to change your values on this. And then I'll hit next, and now it asks what fields do we want. Well, we want the patient first name followed by a space and then the last name. I'll hit the enter key to move down a line. We're going to do the address, enter key, and then we want the city followed by a comma space, the state space, and the zip. We'll hit next. How do we want to sort the information? We want to sort by zip and then by patient last name. We'll hit next, and then we give it a name of report patient mailing labels. So once you've typed that, you can hit finish, and there's our report, and now we can close that report. Moving on to instruction 10, we're going to create a blank report. So we go to create, we do blank report, and we have to make sure that the source of the report is a billing query. So we want to find that data source. We go to the property sheet of the report, make sure you're on the report. There's your record source. The query for billing is already available, so we'll click on that. And now we'll move to layout view. Oh, we are in layout view. So now we have to add existing fields. So these are the fields that are in that report. So if I just double click each one, it will place it into the report. And I said these are the fields that were from the query that are available to the report, I should mention. So now I have all my fields into the report. And we want to remove all of these from the control layout. So I can click up here in that square and then right click layout, remove from layout. So that'll get rid of that square box. And we want to group these by therapist ID. So again, we need that group and sort because we're in the layout view. I'm going to add a group therapist ID. So now it puts the therapist ID as a group with all of the therapist patients as being the detailed records for that group. Now this is a little weird and they fix it and follow on instructions, but that we put the ID as a group, but we left the first and last name down in the details. So normally that you would think those would go up into the group also. And later on we will do that. But for now, that's all they ask us to do. Other than, so when I added that group under more, there was an instruction to make sure we keep the whole group together on a page so we don't end up with a page breaking up a group between pages. And then as similar to before, I'm on instruction 11D, we need to add a subtotal. So obviously it's going to be on the amount field right there. We're going to do a subtotal. So we hit this more and we want it on the amount and we're going to sum. And with that same notion that, whoops, I lost all this. Sum, we're going to do a grand total. I don't know why you can't do two at once. So what do we do? Amount, sum, and then also we're going to show that is the group footer. So now if we scroll to the right a little bit, I should be able to see a subtotal underneath a group, and then at the very bottom will be the grand total for all the therapists. So now instruction E asks us to delete that therapist ID. So if I scroll to the top, I can grab the label, hold down the shift key and grab the control, the text box, and then actually just hit delete. And in instruction 13, we're going to fix this by moving the first and last name up to there. But let's wait till we get to instruction 13. Right now I'm on 11F, which then says we want to sort this thing by the last name of the therapist. So in the same group sort total area, remember if that's turned off, there's a button under the design ribbon that turns it back on. We'll add a sort by last name. So now we're sorting by last name. Now moving on to instruction 12, they want us to select all the controls. Well, first move to design view, so I'll click on this button very bottom right. I can grab all the controls by holding down the shift key. So I've grabbed, let me move out that field list so you can see everything. So I've grabbed all those controls, and now with the arrow, I'll just keep moving these over until they hit the left edge, or we're done. And then we want to drag the right edge of the report. So that's this white border, or black border, the very far edge to 7.5, about right there. So now our report is at the 7.5 inch mark. And now moving on to instruction 13, we're going to move the first and last text box controls into the header section. So this is where we're finally going to start making sense. So right here I'm going to drag down to give myself some room, and then I can grab the controls and move those up. So, whoops, the first thing I shouldn't have done, I didn't want to move the page header. It would have been this header. I need to create some room. The page header, report header, I'll move back up. Okay, so first and last. So I'm going to hold down the shift key, and then with the four-headed arrow, I can move those up. So there's my therapist's name in the header section, and then the detail will be all the patients for that therapist. Instruction 13B says to delete the first and last names off the page header. And then instruction D, 13C, they want one set of grid lines above and below that. And then we're going to put a line across the top and bottom of those names. So similar to what we did before, you go to the design, you grab a line, hold down the shift key, click on the dot and drag over here to the just even with the amount. And then I'm going to control copy, control paste, and then just use my arrow key to move that same line below the first and last name. So if I go to report view, I'll end up with the lines looking like that. Go back to design view. And now on instruction 14, we're basically doing the same thing with the footer control right here, where we're doing the sum of the amount and then the grand total. In each case, we want to move those down just so I have one row of grid buttons or grid dots above it. And then the same thing, we'll grab a line, hold down the shift key, click on a dot, and just go to the edge of the amount. I will go control copy, control C, control V for paste, and then I can grab that and do the same thing right there on that, right above the grand total. And then instruction D and E wants us to put a label next to each of these. So I click the label button, I can draw, I think it said starting at the 5-inch mark, and I could do the same thing here. Oh, what's going on? Why did I lose them? So let's try that again. Label. Probably because I didn't put anything into them. So this is therapist total. And now I can move it over so it's right at the 5, and then I'll do another label. I thought I could draw them without, and they wanted the words grand total here. So instruction 15, we're now going to put a transparent box border around all sections of the report. So holding down the shift key, I can grab all sections. If you go to the property sheet, what it's going to show are the properties that are common for everything that you've selected, and one of those is the border style. So I can make that transparent for all sections of the report. And the same thing, we want to remove that alternate row color. I don't know why they're calling it back color. But if I grab the header section, I can make that a no color, and then the details section, I can make that no color. So that should have accomplished that. So maybe, well, the footer, I don't know that's going to alternate anyway, because you only have one thing there, but just to be safe, I'll go ahead and make that no color. And finally, we're almost done. On instruction 16, we're going to do some header work. We're going to put a title up here. So I'll go to design. I guess I can just hit the title button. It'll do it for us. Because we did do that title button, I then have to, well, let's go ahead and fill this in, but then we're going to have to remove it from the layout. So I'll put billing by therapist. And then I can, by selecting this, right click and say remove, or layout, remove from layout. So we have that done, and then I think there's an instruction to move it. I'm going to use my arrow key, move it to the left till it hits. And then if I just need it selected, go to format, and I can center billing by therapist. And now we're going to add the date to this report. So there's also a date and time wizard, if you will. We don't want the time, and we want the date to look like this, so we hit OK. So that puts in the date right here. And then I think they want us to move it so it is right aligned with something, with the amount label. So same thing, I am going to shrink up a few of these boxes. This one too I was screwed over. As long as I move it to the left, and then I click on the amount, when I go to arrange align right, this guy will move to the right so it aligns with the amount box. And finally, we're going down to the footer sections here, and we're going to put in page numbers. So again, under design, here's page numbers, and we want N of M. We want it in the bottom of the page footer. I probably didn't have to make room. This would have done it. I think center alignment, and do not uncheck that. So we hit OK. And they want us to align that with the amount label since it's already to the left. When I say under arrange, align right, it will move the guy to the left over to the right. So that's right there. I guess I could squeeze up my footer a little bit. So just to make sure it looks okay, I'll click on the report preview. And so, not too bad. I don't know that I skipped anything. I'm going kind of fast and reading the instructions. We don't have any of the alternating color. We have our grand total with our lines. There's our page number. So I think we're done with that exercise.